Welcome to our journey through Homer's The Odyssey. Today, in this special bonus recap episode, we're catching up on books 1 through 10, everything that's brought us to this moment in the story. If you're enjoying this journey through the Odyssey, please take a moment to subscribe and share the podcast with a friend who loves great stories or who has enjoyed Christopher Nolan's film. It really helps us keep bringing these tales to life. Homer's epic has been told and retold for thousands of years. At its heart, it is the story of a father and war hero who is lost from home, a son stepping into manhood while searching for him, and a wife whose loyalty and cleverness hold the household together against overwhelming odds. It's set in a world of gods who intervene in mortal lives, of monsters that test human courage, and of the deep, enduring pull of home. 10 years after the fall of Troy, most of the Greek kings had returned home, but Odysseus of Ithaca remained missing, held captive by the nymph Calypso on a distant island. Back in his palace, his loyal wife Penelope fought a quiet daily battle against over 100 suitors who had taken over the halls, while their son Telemachus began to step out of childhood and into the role of a leader. The gods on Mount Olympus had watched the situation long enough. Athena, ever the protector of Odysseus and his family, stood before Zeus and urged him to act. The time had come to set things in motion for both father and son. In Ithaca, young Telemachus was still finding his footing. The suitors lounged arrogantly in his father's halls, slaughtering livestock and pressuring Penelope to remarry. Athena appeared to the young prince in disguise and stirred him to action. She urged him to call an assembly of the people, the first in many years, and to speak out against the intruders. At that gathering, Telemachus found his voice. He confronted the suitors directly, demanding they leave or help him search for news of his father. Though they mocked him, the seed of courage had been planted. With Athena's guidance, he secretly prepared a ship and sailed away at night with a small crew. His first stop was Pylos, home of the wise old warrior Nestor, a veteran of the Trojan War. There, among stories of the great conflict and the difficult returns of other heroes, Telemachus heard tales of glory and tragedy, but no clear word of Odysseus. Nestor sent him onward to Sparta with his own son as companion. In the splendid palace of Menelaus and Helen, Telemachus finally received real hope. During a feast filled with memories of the war, Menelaus shared what the sea god Proteus had once revealed. Odysseus was still alive, but held captive on a remote island by the nymph Calypso. The news lit a fire in Telemachus. At the same time, back in Ithaca, the suitors learned of his journey and began plotting to ambush and kill him before he could return and rally support against them. While Telemachus was growing into his role on the mainland, the gods turned their full attention to Odysseus himself. Zeus sent Hermes to Calypso's lush island with a direct order: release the hero. The nymph was heartbroken. She had saved Odysseus after his shipwreck, cared for him, and offered him immortality. Yet day after day he sat on the shore weeping for home. She could not defy Zeus. With a heavy heart she helped him cut trees and build a sturdy raft, loaded it with provisions, and watched him sail away under favorable winds. For 17 days, Odysseus made steady progress, steering by the stars. But Poseidon, still nursing his grudge over the blinding of his son the Cyclops, spotted the raft and unleashed a violent storm. The waves shattered the craft. Odysseus clung to a single timber for 2 days and nights until he washed up, naked and exhausted, on the shores of the Phaeacians. He crawled beneath a thicket of olive trees and slept. The next morning, the young princess Nausicaa and her maids came to the river to wash clothes. Their laughter and a wayward bawl woke the stranger. The maids fled, but Nausicaa stood her ground with courage and kindness. She provided clothing, oil, and directions to her father's palace, advising him to approach her mother, Queen Arete, first. Hidden in Athena's mist, Odysseus entered the magnificent palace of King Alcinous, with its bronze walls, golden doors, and ever-fruitful orchards. He threw himself at the queen's feet in supplication and begged for safe passage home. The Phaeacians received him with warm hospitality. He was bathed, clothed, and feasted. During athletic games held in his honor, Odysseus proved his strength by hurling a heavy discus farther than any competitor. Later, the blind bard Demodocus sang moving songs of the Trojan War. When the bard told of the wooden horse and the fall of Troy, Odysseus could not hold back his tears. King Alcinous noticed and gently asked the stranger to reveal his name and the full story of his wanderings. And so Odysseus began to tell his tale. He spoke of the early days after leaving Troy. His fleet raided the land of the Cicones, but fierce fighting cost many lives. Then they reached the land of the Lotus Eaters, where some of his men tasted the sweet fruit and forgot their homes and purpose. Odysseus had to drag them back to the ships by force. The most harrowing encounter came on the island of the Cyclopes. Curious and in need of supplies, Odysseus and 12 men entered the cave of the giant Polyphemus. The monster trapped them inside and began devouring 2 men each night. Using his wits, Odysseus offered the giant strong wine and told him his name was Nobody. When Polyphemus fell into a drunken sleep, they heated a sharpened stake and blinded his single eye. When the other Cyclopes came running and asked who was attacking him, Polyphemus cried out that nobody was hurting him, so they left him alone. In the morning, Odysseus and his men escaped by clinging beneath the giant's sheep. Once at sea, pride led Odysseus to shout his true name. In rage, the blinded Cyclops prayed to Poseidon for revenge, a curse that would haunt Odysseus for years. From there, the journey grew even darker. Aeolus, keeper of the winds, gave Odysseus a bag containing all the contrary winds. They nearly reached Ithaca, but the crew opened the bag out of curiosity, and the storm blew them back. Then came the man-eating Laestrygonians, who destroyed most of the fleet. Only Odysseus's ship survived. Finally, they reached the island of the sorceress Circe. She turned some of Odysseus's scouting party into pigs. Warned by the survivor and armed with a protective herb from Hermes called Molly, Odysseus resisted her magic. Impressed, Circe restored his men and welcomed them all. They stayed for a full year in comfort and feasting. But eventually Circe told Odysseus the next step on his journey. He must sail to the edge of the world and descend into the land of the dead to consult the prophet Tiresias. And that is where our story stands now. Telemachus sails home carrying hope and dangerous knowledge, unaware of the ambush waiting for him. Odysseus rests among the generous Phaeacians, having shared the beginning of his adventures, but knowing the road ahead will take him to the realm of the dead and beyond. This extended recap brings everyone up to speed with the key events, characters, and turning points from books 1 through 10. The parallel journeys of father and son, the interventions of the gods, the growing courage in Ithaca, and Odysseus's own trials at sea and among monsters have all set the stage for what comes next. Join us in the next episode for Book 11, The Land of the Dead, where Odysseus will sail to the very edge of the living world and seek the wisdom of the spirits in the underworld.